There's something strangely satisfying about manhandling something that's this smooth and tight. So a very good morning, boys and girls, and welcome to a very blustery Bempton Cliffs. Now, last week I released a video around doing bird photography with equipment that costs less than 300 quid. Well, in today's video, I want to explore the other end of that. So I've got a setup here which costs decidedly more than 300 quid. So I've got my Canon 1D Mark III with a Canon 100 to 400mm N lens on it. And the plan is today we're just going to set some photos of some seabirds. Need a bit more time for the sun to come up because it's still a little bit dark for it, but I just wanted to get here early before this place starts to fill up. We're still a little bit early in the season for the seabirds around here. There are a few thousand of them around, but it's still a little bit early in the season for all the puffins and all the fun stuff. But today it might just be gannets and guillemots, razorbills, all sorts of things like that. Look at me pretending to know what I'm on about when it comes to birds. Right, so, plan. 1D Mark III, 100 to 400, and we're just going to explore the other side of the budget scale when it comes to bird photography. So let's get stuck in and go start taking some photos. Okay, so just let me talk to you a little bit about the setup that I'm using today as opposed to last time out. So last time I used a Canon 7D with a Sigma 70 to 300mm lens. The Canon 7D has an APS-C size sensor with a 1.6 times crop factor on it, so you do get a little bit more reach than you're going to get with this body because this camera features an APS-H size sensor with a 1.3 times crop factor. But the place we're at right now, the extra reach is going to be fairly negligible, so I've opted for the 1D purely based on performance. Now this camera shoots 10 frames a second as opposed to the 7D's 8 frames a second. But the key difference is here, sorry I'm stumbling for words there, the key difference is the sensor in this camera. Now it has a slightly larger sensor than the 7D, it's not quite a full frame sensor and it's bigger than an APS-H size sensor, so it fits fairly squarely in the middle of the two sensors. Now it has a lower resolution than the 7D, it has 10 megapixels as opposed to the 7D's 18. But because it has lower pixel density on the sensor, the individual pixels are larger, so you can use higher ISO values and you're going to get less noise in your images. So I've brought this camera along purely for the performance. The lens, same F values, so it's as fast as the Sigma that I used in the last video, but it's a lot sharper and it does feature 2 modes of image stabilization, which for this kind of thing, a long focal lens really does help. So now the sun's about up, I think it's time to start taking some photos. What do you reckon? It's enough of me talking, isn't it? Let's go.
If I wrote you a song, if I got every word perfectly weighted on a thin piece of paper, would it make any difference? Would it change for the better? If I wrote you a poem, if I posted a letter? Is it maybe because I never knew quite where I was, then suddenly you told me, baby, you're lost, but I am too. Whatever the cost, we'll make it through. Tell me you're the one for me now, 'cause what am I supposed to do? If you are not the one for me, then tell me now what I could do.
Okay, so let me just talk to you for a second about the settings that I'm using in today's video. So I have my camera set up in shutter speed priority mode at 1,000th of a second, which is generally trying to give me a wide open aperture of 5.6, and I'm changing my ISO to suit. So currently my ISO is set at 400. The sun's come up, it's quite bright, and it's working for me fine. A little bit earlier on when it was a little bit darker, the ISO was around about 1,000, but my shutter speed has stayed the same. It's the ISO that I've been using to change the exposure in the images. So for this kind of thing, you really want as fast a shutter speed as you can get away with. The ISO should be as high as needed, but also as low as possible, if that makes sense. So push it as far as it needs to go, but try and keep it as low as you possibly can, just so you can get them nice, clean, noise-free images. So that's a quick little rundown of some settings. I have moved locations a little bit. I'm a little bit further down now. I just wanted to get away from the people. All the bird nerds are starting to turn up and start asking questions and asking what you've seen, and I don't know. I'm not a wildlife photographer. So, yeah, I moved up a little bit, just gonna camp around here for a little bit, see what I can get photographs of, and then we'll probably move a little bit further down, and again, just see what's hiding down there. So, it's time for some more photographs. Okay, so there's something I'd like to show you about this lens, and it's the way the lens zooms. It's this push-pull motion here. You see, you can push it in, you can push it out, you can slide it up and down and everything, and it's quite a girthy lens as well. I've only got little hands, so if I want to sort of handle this lens, I kind of have to use two hands to get myself around it. And there's a ring on it as well. It says smooth and tight, and there's something strangely satisfying about manhandling something that says smooth and tight. Yeah, smooth and tight, smooth and tight. Push and pull, two hands for the girth. Right, that was weird, wasn't it? I've moved again. Basically, the sun's come up and it's now pointing over these cliffs now, which was a little bit dark earlier on. So what I've decided to do is I'm just gonna camp myself this little disabled viewing area thing, and I'm just going to fire down onto the cliffs down there and see what else we can get today. So it's been a bit of a challenge this morning. The wind is blowing and it's very, very cold, so the lens hood on this thing's massive and it's kind of acting as a big sail sometimes. So you'll be looking out over the water, you get a gust of wind and it'll catch the end of the lens and it'll yank your hand around. It's just one of them days. So yeah, just going to camp through here and start taking some photos of whatever's on this cliff behind me.
Leave it all behind. Let it all go. It's not worth it anymore. You can't convince them or change their minds. It's hard to be kind. You're accused of thin air. Some people, you know them, and they won't know you.
Alright, so I've moved up again. I'll just camp myself in a little spot where you can get a little bit closer to the birds. I've had to climb over a fence, which is probably illegal. Well, maybe not illegal, but probably frowned upon, but at least it's going to allow me to get a little bit closer to the bed. So I'm going to get myself in spot. Just there's some little razor bills down here. I can get quite close to them from here. So lay down. Let's have a look at some settings here. So what are we at? ISO 640, a 500th of a second, and f5.6. There's two of them. So I'm focusing on the front one, the one closest to me. And there's one in the background that's just going to be a little bit more out of focus. And I'm just going to wait for them to basically look at one another. Any way of putting that, look at each other. So let's do this. Let's focus. So I think I've had about enough of the wind and the cold now. As you can see, I had to put my hood up because it keeps attacking me from behind, which is really annoying. So I do hope you have enjoyed the video of me using my Canon 1D Mark III and my Canon 100 to 400mm L lens. I just wanted to show you a different side of the budget when it comes to wildlife photography. So if you have enjoyed the video, please do give it a thumbs up. It really does help the video out and brings new viewers to my channel. If you've enjoyed it more than that, there's a subscribe button down there. You can always press that and you will see more nonsense from me in the future. I'm usually a landscape photographer, but the last few weeks I have been trying to sort of branch out and do different kinds of photography just to freshen things up a little bit. So I guess on that note, I should leave it and I will say peace and goodbye.